I made a video the other day about the Cuban heavyweight contender Luis Ortiz and his alleged attempt at severing ties with his current promoter, Golden Boy Promotions. And in that video, I said that if he manages to leave Golden Boy, the best option for him would be to sign with Haymon, and that no other option in the United States, at least, would make any sense at all. Now, there were some people in the comment section to that video who were disagreeing with me, and they were saying that no, Haymon is not the best option for Luis Ortiz. He should sign with this promoter or that promoter. I was even talking to somebody else elsewhere online, not on YouTube, and this individual was adamant that signing with Haymon would be a bad idea and Ortiz should instead sign with Bob Arum. Now, with the greatest of respect to all those people who were leaving those comments, all of you are not only wrong, but you are outrageously wrong. And to advise Luis Ortiz to sign with anybody other than Haymon is complete and utter madness. Total madness. Totally illogical, totally irrational, and just outright foolish. I'm going to explain exactly why in this video. Now, if you're a fighter and you're looking for a promoter, you have to look at various different factors. How big the promoter is, how much of a priority he can make you, what his track record is like in terms of getting his fighters active, getting them world title shots, and crucially, what that promoter is like at handling fighters within your weight division. Some promoters have got a large stable within particular weight categories, and they're good for fighters within those weight categories, but not so good for fighters in other weight categories. For example, Bob Arum has got several fighters in the lower weight divisions, particularly light welterweight and welterweight. He's got Tim Bradley, he's got Jesse Vargas, he's got Victor Postal, he's got Terence Crawford, he's got Manny Pacquiao. He doesn't have Provodnikov, but he does work with him. So if you were a welterweight or light welterweight, signing with Bob Arum might not be a bad idea. But if you're a heavyweight like Luis Ortiz, signing with Bob Arum would be a terrible idea. The best place to sign would be Haymon. Now let me explain why. Bob Arum only has one heavyweight of note, and that is Andy Ruiz. He has had Andy Ruiz from the beginning of Ruiz's career. Ruiz is now 28-0. Ruiz has only fought 4 times in the past 2 years, so Arum hasn't kept him very busy. And Ruiz has never fought a top 15 heavyweight. He's never fought for the world title. In his next fight, which will be his 29th, he's going to fight for the NABF heavyweight title. Other than that, like I say, Arum's got literally no other heavyweights. So that is not a very good track record for Bob Arum for heavyweights over the past couple of years, is it? Then we move on to Kathy Duva. Now, Kathy Duva only has one heavyweight of note, just like Arum. And that heavyweight is Glazkov. Glazkov did fight for a version of the world title, but other than that, he's been fairly inactive. And as I say, that's the only heavyweight that Kathy Duva's got. Also, Kathy Duva is a very small promotional outfit. She don't put on a lot of shows. Her whole promotional company is basically revolving around Sergey Kovalev, and that's it. Everyone else is pretty much secondary. So she don't have the greatest track record for heavyweights over the past couple of years. Then you move over to Don King. Now, back in the days, Don King used to be the man for heavyweight boxing. He was ripping everybody off. Let's not get confused. Don King had a very bad track record in terms of, the way he would treat his heavyweights. But in terms of giving his fighters opportunities, he was the man for heavyweight boxing back in the days. These days, it's not quite the same. Don King has 1 or 2 heavyweights. I know he has Berman Stavern, who he did manage to get a shot at the heavyweight title, but other than that, Stavern has been pretty inactive. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think he also might have Eric Molina, who also got a shot at the heavyweight title. But other than that, he's been relatively inactive. So Don King is still better in terms of providing opportunities for heavyweights than Bob Arum or Kathy Duva, for example. Now, let me now show you Al Haymon's track record for heavyweights over the past couple of years and show you why it's so obvious, so blatantly clear that the only sensible place for a heavyweight in the United States to sign is with Al Haymon. It's so obvious. His track record is massively better than those other guys. He gets his heavyweights out far more frequently, and he gets them far more opportunities than the other American promoters. And I know Al Haymon is not strictly a promoter, but, you know, he acts as a promoter, basically, or allegedly. So anyway, let me just reel off this very long list of what Haymon has done for his heavyweights. He has Deontay Wilder, the WBC heavyweight champion. Wilder has fought 5 times in the past 2 years, and all of those fights have been world title fights. He also has Charles Martin. Martin has fought 11 times in the past 2 years, and 2 of those fights were world title fights. He also has Dominic Breazeale, who has fought 10 times in the past 2 years, and 1 of those fights was a world title fight. He also has Artur Spilka, who's fought 6 times in the past 2 years, and 1 of those fights was a world title fight. He also has Chris Arreola, who's fought 5 times in the past 2 years, and 2 of those fights were world title fights. He also has Gerald Washington, who's fought 9 times in the past 2 years. No world title fights yet, but he's obviously been very, very active, and he's got him out on plenty of shows. Deontay Wilder only joined Al Haymon in I believe it was 2013 he joined Al Haymon. And in 2014 he got a title shot. So 1 year with Uncle Al and he gets a title shot. Yeah, that's how quickly Al Haymon gets you results if you're a heavyweight. And out of those world title fights that he's got, his fighters that I just mentioned, not all of those world title fights were in-house fights. He managed to get Chris Arreola a shot at a vacant WBC heavyweight title against Bermane Stiverne, who's promoted by Don King. He managed to get Deontay Wilder to become mandatory challenger for Bermane Stiverne's heavyweight title and get him a shot against Stiverne. So 2 of his fighters, he managed to get them a shot at the WBC title in a row. Al Haymon. Yeah. Then he managed to get another one of his fighters, Charles Martin. He somehow got him highly ranked in the IBF and got him a shot against Glasgow for the vacant IBF title. Yeah, and Glasgow is promoted by Kathy Duva. So he's even getting his fighters shots at heavyweight titles when it's not an in-house fight, when it's against a rival promoter's fighter. So he is obviously lobbying these sanctioning bodies, doing whatever he's doing. I'm not saying it's all above board. I'm not saying it's not. I don't know. But from a fighter's perspective, if you want somebody who's going to get you results and you're a heavyweight, look no further than Al Haymon. Just look at his track record. It is second to none for heavyweights over the past couple of years. He gets his heavyweights fighting way more frequently than all the other promoters, and he manages to get them opportunities that other promoters don't manage to get them. And as I say, there were those world title fights he managed to get for his fighters, and then there's obviously the in-house fights. Chris Arreola just had an in-house world title shot against Wilder. Artur Spilka had an in-house world title shot against Wilder. Now, if Luis Ortiz was to sign to Al Haymon, he may be able to get a shot at Wilder too, because Luis Ortiz is a Spanish speaker. He's Cuban. There is a big Cuban community in the United States. When Ordinel Solis was fighting a lot in the United States, he was getting good turnouts from the Cuban community. They were turning out to support him. The United States has got tens of millions of Spanish speakers, tens of millions of Latinos in the United States. It might even be like 100 million. If you're from the United States, I'm sure you can give me a more accurate figure, but let's just say there's 100 million Spanish speakers in the USA. Close to that. There is a massive market there for a Latino heavyweight. Al Haymon has got PBC. He puts on shows across multiple different television networks as well as on Showtime. So his platform is far bigger than Bob Arum or any of the other guys. And as I said, his track record for heavyweights, he gets them out far more frequently. He gets them fighting all over the place. Look at the amount of fights these guys have just had that I've just mentioned. Gerald Washington's fought 9 times in the past 2 years. Dominic Breazeale has fought, 10 times in the past 2 years. Charles Martin, 11 times in the past 2 years. Yeah, look how often he's getting his heavyweights out. You put Luis Ortiz out there plenty of times, and he may give him the shot against Wilder, because if he has Ortiz and Ortiz beats Wilder, well, then he's just inherited a marketable Latino heavyweight. Yeah, and he's just had a showcase world title fight where this Latino heavyweight has knocked out Deontay Wilder. And now all these Latino fans are going to get on board with Ortiz, and away you go. Because America has got a massive Latino population. Now, there are those people who say, okay, maybe there isn't anywhere else in the United States for Ortiz to sign other than Haymon. But what would be better than Haymon is if he went over to the UK and signed with a promoter there and tried to get a fight with David Haye or Anthony Joshua. People, with all due respect, that is an absolutely ridiculous idea. I mean, you're talking about fairyland stuff. You're talking absolute fantasy. There is no way in hell that David Haye would fight Luis Ortiz. Have you forgotten who David Haye is? You honestly think David Haye is gonna, oh yeah, let me fight Luis Ortiz? Yeah, that seems like a sensible thing to do. David Haye's looking for the quickest and easiest route to a mega fight. Luis Ortiz would not be a mega fight. Yeah, in the United Kingdom. Luis Ortiz has no fans in the UK outside of the very hardcore like us. Yeah, so he has no fans at all. To the casuals who watch David Haye fights, he'd just be another name, another person they never heard of. David Haye's never going to fight Luis Ortiz. What absolute madness for people to even suggest that. Then people saying he should fight Joshua. He should sign to Eddie Hearn and fight Joshua. Eddie Hearn would never let Luis Ortiz get anywhere near Anthony Joshua. You think Eddie Hearn is going to sign Ortiz and give him a fight with Joshua? Do you think Eddie Hearn is that stupid? Joshua is massively marketable. He is a massive cash cow for Eddie Hearn. If he was to sign Ortiz and then have Ortiz fight and beat Joshua, do you think Ortiz could replace Joshua as a cash cow for Eddie Hearn or come anywhere close? A guy who don't speak any English? I mean, what complete madness to even think that could ever happen. Joshua's not just popular because he's knocking people out. He's popular because, for one, he speaks English. He was born and raised in England. The girls love him. Ortiz weren't born in England. He don't speak English. The girls don't love him. He's nowhere near as marketable as Joshua. The only way Joshua's going to be fighting Luis Ortiz is if Ortiz was made mandatory. That's the only way that fight would ever happen. Let's be real here. Eddie Hearn's never going to pick Ortiz as a voluntary for Joshua. Even if he signed Ortiz, he would never do it because he understands that he would be taking a massive hit in the pocket if Ortiz was to beat Joshua. Him trying to market Ortiz to the British public, he's never going to be able to replace Joshua. He don't speak English. You know, there's hardly any Latino people in the United Kingdom. It's just a complete ridiculous suggestion, people. Some people, and I'm not saying everybody who is making these suggestions is like this, but a lot of people are. Some people just have an irrational hatred of Al Haymon. That's what it is for a lot of people. They would rather fighters not sign with Haymon, even though it's the best thing for their careers. They'd rather fighters not sign with him just because they hate him, because they don't want to see him have any good fighters. Even though signing with Haymon, in some instances, certainly for Ortiz, would be by far the best choice for him, just because they hate Al Haymon that much, irrationally, for no good reason. They say, no, don't sign with Haymon, sign with this guy or that guy instead. It's total stupidity, people. Stop it. Yeah, I've just laid out the facts here. Haymon is the only sensible place for Ortiz to go. He's not a welterweight, he's a heavyweight. The guy with a track record for heavyweights is Haymon. The guy with the platform, multiple channels, multiple shows in front of an enormous Latino audience in the United States. The guy who has that is Haymon. The guy who can deliver his heavyweights world title shots is Haymon. The guy who can get them fighting frequently is Haymon. There's nowhere else for him to go. Nowhere else sensible. Having said all that, I've heard a rumor that Luis Ortiz is actually going to sign to Caribe Promotions, or Caribe Promotions, however you pronounce it, which is the same promotional outfit who promote Guillermo Rigondeaux. Now, in the previous video I did about Ortiz, I said that Cuban heavyweights, or Cuban fighters in general, don't seem to be very business savvy. And somebody in the comments said, well, it's because they come from a communist society and they don't really know the ins and outs of capitalist society. And that may well be the case. If he does sign with Caribe Promotions, it will be a tragedy, because they're a terrible promotional outfit, judging by how they've handled Guillermo Rigondeaux's career. It'll be very, very sad. Signing with them would be even worse than signing with Top Rank or Cafe Duva or a UK promoter. It'd be even worse. Frank Warren wouldn't be a good choice either, for those of you who are wondering what I think about Ortiz signing with Frank Warren. Frank Warren has very small numbers, viewing figures on Box Nation. His shows get very, very small audience numbers, and his fighters don't get paid anywhere near as much as Eddie Hearn fighters do. And you know, Eddie Hearn, having a Spanish speaking Luis Ortiz, wouldn't be able to pay him anywhere near as much as Al Haymon would be able to pay him fighting in the United States, where there is a huge Spanish speaking population, loads of Cubans, loads of Mexicans, loads of Puerto Ricans, and all types of other Latino people. I mean, Al Haymon pays his fighters so well that Eddie Hearn has been saying that Al Haymon pays his fighters too much. And Eddie Hearn pays his fighters a lot. So no matter which way you look at it, no matter which way you dissect it, the only sensible place for Luis Ortiz to sign, the only logical place for him to sign in the world, would be to sign with Al Haymon. Simple as that. There is no other argument here. Any type of argument disagreeing with what I'm saying, you are just making yourself look stupid, because you're saying stuff that's totally irrational. It doesn't make any sense. Use logic, people. Yeah? Stop basing him, stop basing your argument on the fact that you hate Al Haymon, because that's what it is for a lot of people. They just hate Haymon, and even if it's the best thing for the fighter to do, they say, no, don't sign with Haymon, I hate him. To hell with whether you hate Haymon or not. Look at what's best for the fighter. Look at where the fighter is going to get the most opportunities. Look at the place which has the track record for that particular weight division. Yeah? It is what it is. Drop your comments in the comment section below, people. It's your boy Haymon, I'm out.